introduction about the topic. Coming type 2 diabetes. Type 1 is rare, but when it comes about the management, we have to be very holistic, we have to be very much empathetic. Our parents walking inside the chamber, other they were literally family. That my saying, now you have to manage everything, insulin, education, diet, carb counting, everything. Over to Komal ma'am, without any delay, it has been fixed. How she is counseling, and the important thing she today will go to highlight, that is the carb counting, that how much it is important carb counting. So more and more we emphasis as a dietitian is the education part. So more you can educate your of insulin, the child is not taking food, maybe diarrhea, maybe cold, cough, fevers. So what is your key on maintaining the sick days?
A child on insulin regimen should not stop with insulin. So whether the sugars even are high, this is the in today's scenario we have got so many types of different new innovations in this insulin section also. So what we do when we wean off a child from IV, Kavita ma'am must be knowing, so I am talking something what she has done from so many years. So when we wean off a child from IV to a diet, so what we do, we give an insulin something which is called as PRs, that is rapid acting insulin. So because the child is still under hyperglycemia, maybe the ketones are being corrected. Until or unless the urine is negative totally for the ketones, we don't start with the diet. The urine has to be free from ketones, but sugars are high, but again we have to start with the diet. So it is 24 hours that we start with the diet, and when we start that, we cannot anticipate that whatever the meal is given to the child will eat. So how much ever grams of carbohydrate, how much ever the food the child eats, after that insulin is given. So that means insulin is at most important. Even if the child is not eating, a low dose of insulin can be given. And if the child prior to hypoglycemia and the child sugars are low in our room. So when we take a recall, we understand the quantity from there, what they are saying. Okay, they are taking this much quantity of cereals, pulse, milk, all those stuff. But when we plan, then when it is the exchange way we are giving to the patient. Say suppose a meal contains rice, cereal, pulse group, a vegetable group, a non-veg group and a milk group. So when we plan it accordingly, we write usually many of the I will not take the name as such, they say ki how we will manage if you give 30 grams of rice, uncooked rice. So my answer to this is to mothers basically, ma'am apni ki bhalo rana koren. So they come up and they say ki no ma'am ami to pulao bhalo kori ba ami biryani bhalo kori. Thik ache madam apni biryani bhalo kori. How you cook biryani? You know that you have to take some amount of rice. With that you have to balance with the non-veg, then you have to balance with the onion, then you have to balance with the masala, so that you get a proper good tasty biryani. I am not talking about healthy, biryani is not healthy. In today's scenario we have got so many types of different new innovations in this insulin section also. So what we do when we wean off a child from IV, Kavita ma'am must be knowing, so I am talking something what she has done from so many years. So when we wean off a child from IV to a diet, so what we do, we give an insulin something which is called as PRs, that is rapid acting insulin. So because the child is still under hyperglycemia, maybe the ketones are being corrected. Until or unless the urine is negative totally for the ketones, we don't start with the diet. The urine has to be free from ketones, but sugars are high, but again we have to start with the diet. So it is 24 hours that we start with the diet. And when we start that, we cannot anticipate that whatever the meal is given to the child will eat. So how much ever grams of carbohydrate, how much ever the food the child eats, after that insulin is given. So that means insulin is at most important. Even if the child is not eating, a low dose of insulin can be given. And if the child prior to hypoglycemia and the child sugars are low, you give the food, check and then give the correction dose. So that is how. So you should not stop insulin for a child in any of the days. Even in a low dose, it should be given.
So another question, check, then you can manage it very well. DKA also can be managed. So SMBG is also very, very important. Another important asking about do you find compromised gut in your patients constipation, or even the importance of fluid and water and how much fluid is recommended in the pediatric population and the fiber also.
Yes. So, cut compromised constipation is something which is very common in pediatric population, and when you take a recall, you will find if it is 50% kids, if it is there are 35 to 40% kids, they don't take vegetables. So you need to teach the parents or especially the mothers, not in front of the kids. What I say, if the child is not taking vegetable, boil it, puree it, mix it with the dough, mix it with the dal, mix it with the non-veg curries what he is liking. So if you mix up, that puree of vegetable will go inside in a hidden form. That is for the fiber. But again, we have a separate calculation for fiber also. H plus 5 is the calculation for the fiber that can be given to the patients. Now coming to the fluids. So fluids calculation in pediatric is basically that we use this for holiday cigar method. So for first 10 kgs it is 1000 ml. For next 10 kgs, 10 to 20 kgs, it is 1000 plus 50 ml per kg body weight, and last more than that it is plus 20 ml. So it lands up at 1500 plus 20 into whatever is the weight of the child, that is the final amount. So it is basically the weight with the age of the child, how much fluids needs to be given, because we don't want the child to get dehydrated. That if there is dehydration, ketones will turn out to be positive.
Yes.
So hydration needs to be maintained for the child. So if the child is not taking water, you can give free food like diluted buttermilk. You can give coconut water. So even that, those are the things which will add on to hydration also and maintain the electrolytes also for such kids.
Like they go haywire, how do we manage?
This is not a very common condition. Cancer being a chronic condition, we do not have a very large ICU setup is not required most of the times. But in this case, the TLS, the management would depend on primarily the fluid and electrolyte correction first. And then only we can move on to the rest of the things. When the patient is stabilized, once he is stabilized, then only we would think of the other things. And we would try and avoid a renal situation by giving him quite a high amount of fluids, about 3 to 5 liters of fluids, so that all the things can be washed out in the urine.
Is going to increase, because in SLED there is going to be again requirements of calorie protein going to be on the upper side, and here you also need to pay your eye on the electrolytes, because lot would be happening at the doctor's end, diuretics, fluid, what they would be ingesting, right doctor? So based on what they are doing, we have to be in conjugation with them, and accordingly we need to design the tube feed or whatever the patient may be.
How should we feed this patient? A diet, a menu chart that the patient is taking. And regarding the evaluation, it's very important that we evaluate the patient prior to discharge once, do a screening to see how much of weight loss has happened, how has the health deteriorated before the person is discharged. So then we can plan the discharge diet chart better. It's very important, and I think also, I think doctor will agree with me, that when we are talking about evaluating a patient, we do not have any one nutritional parameter to say that, okay, my patient has done well nutritionally. So the functional,
functional aspect is very important.
And that is where the teamwork comes in. We need to talk to the doctor, has he improved or not?
We all have been saying since morning that it's a insulin resistance. But why insulin is getting resistant? Any idea? It is that same phenytoin A that you have seen. Now this phenytoin A, as you can see, it is blocking this signaling pathway and not letting the glucose uptake. And that is the reason that gradually there is an elevated blood glucose level. So talking about this phenytoin A, very recently this
mandatory. Like no one should have caffeine or any kind of green tea or herbal teas. Like teas made like blue tea can be taken because this is totally herbal flower made.
Chamomile tea.
And caffeinated products should be restricted at that time. Also, on coming on the second question, hydration is more important. Hydration is always important for that person also who is doing night shifts, and for the one who is doing 24 hours fasting. Yes. So even if the person is on fasting, they can have plenty of fluids and 0-calorie drinks they can have.
This is very fantastic.
So this is the circadian rhythm. Body clock. Start from 2 a.m. At 2 a.m. we are at the deepest sleep, and then at 4:30 our body temperature is at its lowest. In morning 6:45 it's raised. 10 a.m. in the morning we are at this state of highly alertness, and then in the afternoon around 2:30 it is the best